start the day
Whew.
with applause.
Yeah, I recommend it.
It's powerful.
Speaking of powerful, wow, Mark, did you do that on purpose? Okay, so we're talking about managing your catalog. Very
Yep.
important. Probably a key feature of your website.
Yep.
But we have lots of tools that are very powerful, and a lot of them are overlooked. So we're going to talk about
Some of them.
some of them.
Well, all of them over the next number of things. But
Yeah.
today, this area here, if you go to inventory and products, this product section, the top section here, this is full of really useful things when you're trying to make sure your catalog is accurately reflected what's in the store, what's available overall, and just making sure things are dialed, especially if you're creating your own catalog items. And the one I
Yeah.
want to talk about today, because these filters are pretty straightforward. You can search for things, you can do it by category, brand, gender, model year. But this display type turns out to be pretty powerful.
Hmm.
So if we just, I'm going to pick a year just to make sure not so much shows up. But if we just by default, it uses this pricing display. And this is the one I think people just use because it's the first one that pops up.
Yeah.
From here, you can preview items, you can edit items, you can delete items, you can tell them to display or not. You see the basic information. There's pricing. You can add start and end dates for sale prices. You can, which you don't typically do here. The POS integration does that, but you
Right.
know if it's an item you created and it's not mapped in your POS, you do that here. You can set it to closeout, which doesn't need the dates. It just sets it to closeout the minute you check that box and observes the closeout rule if you have it set. And you can also tell it to ignore map. So if it's a product that uses our map protection or our price integrity, it's now called. It has been for a long time. Forgive me for forgetting that. You can enable that here. So maybe it's a 2 or 3 model year old thing, not subject to map anymore. So you can ignore that. And you see the whether or not it's mapped in your POS data or not.
Hmm.
So very handy. But there's other display types that are maybe even more handy. So and this display will be different based on your package level. So light and local don't see as much here as pro. So keep that in mind too.
Right.
The featured display is kind of handy. So this is where if you've told a bunch of items they're featured, like you've gone into the item and said featured, and later you want to come back and see how many of them are on display and featured, this is the
Hmm.
easy way to do that. So you can set them, you can either filter it by just items that are featured using this, or you can just see which ones are here. So again, same icons, except magically this other one's appeared. So if you want to copy an item, that copy icon only lives in the featured item display. But that's pretty handy if you're building your own items. Say you're building kayaks, and you build the first one, and the next two are kind of similar. They're just a little
Mm.
different. You can copy those and save a ton of time copying those items. You can set it to display and you can tell it it's a featured item, which is a handy little
Nice.
tool because you can have catalog sections that just display the featured items. So handy, handy. And it's
Hmm.
also a place you can find the item ID, which you don't really need all that much anymore, but it is handy to know where to find that because that is unique to the website.
Hmm.
Where the library ID is it's the same library ID across all websites.
Yeah.
And then,
Excellent pro tip on the copy.
oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It used to not, back in the day, before there were so many things going on here, you had so much power that just that icon just lived there all the time. But then once we
Mm.
started adding a lot of features, it just wasn't enough room, so we put it there in featured items. Shipping display, kind of handy as well, so you can edit shipping rules more than just one at a time. So you can see things like the weight of the item, the dimensional information and the dimensional weight, whether it's available for shipping on ground. Is it an ORMD item? Are you charging shipping for it? Do you want to add extra shipping for that item? So super handy, and you're able to do that uh, kind of in mass. And so think of it like you wouldn't necessarily just do all 2025 items. You might say, hey, I want to update a bunch of helmets.
Yeah.
So you would filter up here by helmets and then do the shipping display, and then you'd see all this information just for helmets. You'd go to make a bunch of adjustments, and that might be something like, well, I want to charge $5 extra shipping on every helmet. So it's an easy way. And you could even do that on the top and just
And
copy it down, kind of thing.
yeah.
So again, very powerful for quickly managing information on the site. The delete display we have touched on as part of the trilogy of managing POS data,
Hmm.
but this is handy if you're trying to get through and delete a bunch of items at one time. So instead of having to go into each item, click delete and say yes, you just check the box on the ones you want to delete. And then at the very bottom, you check this button and it deletes all the checked items. So super handy, particularly for that catalog health thing, like getting rid of all the things that are not mapped in your POS system.
Yeah.
And then finally is the category display. And this can be handy if you have products that, well, for a lot of things, but if you have products that can live in multiple categories, then it's easy to come here and add it to another category or change a category, etc. So that's handy.
Nice.
In addition to just seeing those things. So maybe you want to check and make sure, like here's one that's in multiple categories. So it's cross-categorized. So that's handy. So this is a quick way to do that.
Nice.
And, you can also check the display or not. So those are, I think, super powerful tools in an area of our admin that is just generally super powerful. So that's one little thing that allows you to really manipulate that data so that it's as accurate and effective as possible for your consumers. And as we've talked about over and over again, the better it is for consumers, the better it is for search, the better the site traffic will be organically, and the more people will show up in your store to buy things.
Amazing.
Amazing.
This was, I think this was I feel like this was a kind of a good, like, behind the curtain moment. Really good pro tips in there.
Well, it has reminded me how powerful this is, and we're going to keep looking at this. We'll do more of these on these little filters. We'll do this. That's a good one there.
Yeah.
Include unimported supplier sync items. That's gold.
I'm
Gold.
excited.
Gold, I say.
Wow.
Music.
Bye.
Where is my cursor?
It's gone.